Good times.
Let me know when it's on. We're on. Okay, we're going to reconvene. No action was taken, and so
I need a motion and.
he said we don't need to make a motion.
If you want to, you can.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have to.
Well, I'll make a motion to come out of a, well, I say I will. I'll make the mo, can I get a little bit of, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we have a motion to reconvene?
Turn that down, yeah.
Where's Jeff?
It's all playing back.
It's just playing back.
It's all feedback.
By the way, we reconvened at 8:23. So, you want to make that motion, Mark?
Yes, I'll make the motion that we reconvene.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that we reconvene.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So moving forward,
Yeah.
so the city manager's report.
I can't handle that playback stuff, guys. We got to fix this issue.
Is it delayed? The stream is delayed by about 15 seconds.
Maybe that's what it's, exactly what it's doing.
Yeah, we're hearing ourselves over again. Just
I'll tell him.
Test one,
Mark, we got
test,
a little out of order,
test 1, 2.
and so we're gonna do our consent agenda before we move forward. Okay? All right, so, I apologize, folks. We're gonna do the consent agenda before we move forward. So action item A, meeting in minutes from the regular meeting, January 9th, 2025. And I guess we can do the financial report all at once. So in the financial report, do I hear a motion to accept that?
yes, I make a motion.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now we'll move forward with the city manager's report.
Okay, you pretty much have a written report, and I did send out an email this morning concerning a couple of things that had come up since the agenda was posted on Monday and was sent out to you guys on Monday. The one I want to bring to your attention was a Safe to School grant opportunity that has come up, and I believe that had been discussed prior to me coming here. We can't hear you. Can't hear? Can you hear? Little better now? Little better now? Okay. A Safe to School grant, and what it is a pre-application to try and get sidewalks put in on South Oak from the crosswalk all the way down to Love's to make it safe for the kids there. It is a pre-application. If that gets accepted by Department of Transportation, then it goes on to a different grant. Goes into the next part of the application, and following that, if we were asked to take part in that, then we would move on to trying to get the grant and trying to be awarded it in October. The estimate that was come in was pretty high, but we think that there's a couple of methods after talking with Kevin and Jeff, that there's a couple of ways that we may be able to find the funding match. Also, maybe a reduction in the cost as well. So we're looking at that. Also, it's a get it in for the first time go around. The application had to be in, I believe, by next Friday, and that's why the urgency was put in this. I think it would be good for the community to try and do that. I do believe that there's been a number of incidents with school children alongside folks, so we're trying to remedy that situation. If we do not get it, at least we're in the hat for the next go-around or the next go-around, and it is very rare that you actually get a grant that is as competitive as this in the first go-around. So that's one thing. we have had some computer issues here, and we have been trying to address them. Right now, I think they are being addressed, but we're trying to get them handled as best as possible. I did order to have 2 standby computers ready at the City Hall, just because of the reboots are eating up a full day on more than a full day from trying to get them done. So we've ordered to have 2 standby, and if the next reboot don't work, then we're just transferring over to a new computer to have a standby. I believe most of the other things that are on my report will be discussed later on in the agenda, so I'm just going to pass it along now back to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay.
I do have a quick question. So back to that grant, so I know that you mentioned that the first go-around statistically probably won't happen, but if it did, so we're looking at around October-ish, so it'd be at the end of this current budget going into a new budget, is that correct?
It will actually be going into next year's budget 100%. Probably some of the engineering will be done towards the end of this year, but well, most of the engineering will be done after that, so it'll be all next year and possibly even the year after that.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that, we had the opportunity to have the funding to match what we have to match
Yep.
in that grant. I'm good.
Okay. Everybody set? Okay, the next report will be the police monthly report.
How are y'all?
Good.
Good.
So aside from the customary printout I give everybody, we've also had 296 security checks that were performed this month.
Speak into the microphone, please.
155 total call for service. 44 of those calls were made into a report. Can you hear it? Is it on?
Yeah.
There's just something
Better
wrong
get
with the volume. You have to be right up.
We had 44 call for services that resulted in a report. Can y'all hear me a little bit better?
Yes.
Can you talk a little closer to it, please, Chief?
It's
Yeah,
like
I feel- I
it's
feel
like being a rock
star.
star. You got to get
Yeah, I
really,
feel like a
really
rock
up in
star
here.
over here. So we had 12 of the reports that actually were generated into offense reports. 11 of those reports were crashes. We had 202 traffic violations that were logged. 115 of them were given warnings. 87 resulted in a citation. So we had a meeting with TxDOT this month for the STEP program. And the STEP program is a specialized traffic enforcement program. That's where we get grant money from TxDOT to go out more or less and work traffic on the interstate to make sure people are not speeding. The Click It or Ticket campaign is one of those. We had our meeting. It was a little preemptive. They said that we can't really do anything until next month. So we did get a little bit of an idea, understanding of how everything's going to play out, work out, how the money's going to come into the city for TxDOT paying for our officers being out working traffic. We had our meet and greet with Mr. Campbell at the police department. I feel like it went very well. We're looking forward to working with him. We had 2 applicants this month who came in and had their preliminary interviews with us. Both applicants are pretty well sought in our field. They have training, they have experience already. They come with a very strong investigative background, both of them do. So we look forward to moving into the next step, which is the background check, and from there we'll probably have a second interview on both of them. We are still in the process of getting every officer a vacation for some time off, so y'all will see a little bit of dynamic staffing taking place, people who are not normally working nights on days work nights, kind of back and forth. We have ordered a few instruments for the police department for detection of it for our disposal. One of those instruments are window tint meters. We're very happy to have those. We have seen quite a few people going around town where every piece of glass on their vehicle is blacked out, including windshields. And that creates a huge, huge safety concern, especially if they drive that vehicle at night. And that's about all I've got for y'all.
Anybody got any questions?
I don't.
All right, we'll move, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move forward to the Water Department. Kevin, Water and Parks.
All right. So, I know y'all know, but they don't know, so I'm gonna start with stuff y'all know. That way they know. So we put well number 4 online January 20th. That allowed us to do the drawdowns on all the wells that we weren't able to do by turning them off. When we did the drawdown on well number 4, we had an issue with it. So we turned it off immediately because we didn't want to be on the hook for something going wrong. We worked with KSA and Allsay, and they come up. We did a lot of testing. They would drive up here from Houston. We'd do tests. They'd go home. We had a meeting, the engineers, we had a meeting with Allsay last week, and they sent up the rig on Friday, set the rig up, pulled the well out, set it on the ground. Put 2 new air lines and a new PVC line. Put it all back in and landed the head yesterday. Sent a guy up today. We did some testing. They'll be here tomorrow to take their bacteriological sample and button up stuff out there to where we can turn it back on to the system, and then we can do some more testing as far as head pressures, because what we have going on right now, this is just Kevin's opinion, is that the pump is pumping too many gallons per minute for the well. At one point out there, they had a sonic meter put on there today, and I saw 588 gallons a minute, and that's too much because that well was built for 400 gallons a minute. That's Kevin's opinion, so they're having to work through this. So as far as the water, that's what we've been doing for the last few weeks. That way all y'all know what's going on with the well. I know Bill does. He come up and asked me a bunch of questions, you know, got informed of what was happening and whatnot. Excuse me. As far as the parks, them guys have really stepped up into helping us. They've got out and cleaned some curbs, you know, themselves with a shovel and the flatbed truck, and then they've done a lot of tree trimming in the parks, on the side of the roads, streets, and got all their mowers ready because it's ready, it's time, they're going to start cutting grass. So do y'all have any other questions?
Hey, do we own that property right across the street from the Masonic Lodge behind,
Yeah, there's a pine tree down.
yeah.
That's in our property.
That's y'all, all them pines?
Yep, that's city property. It's just been too wet to get down there.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
All right, so moving forward on the action items, action item A, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance 02-13-2025 prohibiting loitering.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Chief, is he still here?
Chief,
Can you start off by giving us the definition of that?
I'm sorry.
What all this details?
Loitering.
Loitering, give us the definition of it.
The loitering, it's hanging out in a place. They have it in this order. We have it to where it's a place of business or private property, or you hang out with no intended purpose, just hanging out more or less.
I'll make the motion.
No, I needed to discuss this.
All right, go for it.
Especially about the wording. I'm all for a loitering ordinance. However, I'm very concerned about verbiage about private residence and apartment houses, not so much, but the private residence. To me, the way this reads is that I could be loitering in my own front yard. Now, if somebody else is on my property and I want them removed, that's trespassing.
Correct.
So trespassing covers all that. This private homes and things of that nature that are listed through this, the wording, I know it's Terrell's, it's word for word that Terrell had, because I went through it. My suggestion is, I have to jump ahead to the camping ordinance, where it defines private property means any real property owned by an individual, entity, or organization that is not within the definition of a public area as defined herein. And then it goes into public areas listing streets, sidewalks, roads, et cetera. And it does include apartment houses. So it's defining a private property as a private property. In other words, what I'm getting at is I sit on my porch with myself, my wife, 10 to 15 people at a time. Technically, according to this, I'm loitering. If my neighbor complains, I could get a ticket for it. So that's my concern.
All places privately owned, but open to the public generally. Homes or private residences. Yeah, I mean, Mark's right. If you took a literal interpretation of that definition, then the hypothetical he posed is correct. Obviously, I would hope, and I know Chief would agree, some common sense would be used, but keep in mind, this can be amended, changed at the discretion of the council. So if that's something we want to take out just to absolutely ensure that that hypothetical Mark mentioned does never occurs, then we certainly could do that.
Now, is that gonna be on action item A or action item B?
A.
That would be, that'd be A. So if you want to approve it with an amendment, then we can do that, and we can take that verbiage out and then present it to Sarisa for Ernie to come in and sign.
So if you look at the two different ordinances here, if you look at definitions on the camping ordinance C and D, can that be added to the loitering ordinance, and the removal of the word private in section, or I guess A, and then it comes down to definitions, and maybe replacing the definitions of place with these two definitions? Does that make sense?
Sure. So take private, take private out of 1A.
Yes.
And then under definitions, instead of place, we have two definitions as we have in the camping ordinance for private property and public area.
Yes.
Mark, may I?
Yes.
If you look under section A, the loitering unlawful, basically gives the circumstances that afford, third line down, under circumstances that afford probable cause for alarm or concern for the safety and well-being of persons or for the security of property in the surrounding area. I think that may help the situation there, because it would be a case if there's no concern going on at that area, whether it's public or private, then it's
Yeah, I mean, I understand that private probably in the chapter that we're discussing was probably meant for privately owned strip centers or malls or things of that nature, but when you get down into places and it says private, such as homes, then that, to me, that, I don't like that. I'll just be upfront about it. I mean, if there's somebody loitering on my property, I'll handle it. And if it's somebody loitering in front of a house that's for sale, that's trespassing.
Well, not if they're on, they really wouldn't be I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that wouldn't be trespassing if they're out there in the,
Sidewalk.
sidewalk.
In front of that house.
In front of, like in front of that house.
Well,
That's not
then,
trespassing
well,
now.
technically, when you go into here, I didn't circle it, but you have number 6 under C here. Systematic checking by a person of doors, windows, or other means to access building, houses, or vehicles. I think just that would fall under that category. Like, why are you here?
I can see that as being trespassing rather than a loitering. I see your point.
Okay.
So, how are we gonna word it?
I think we got it.
You got it?
You want to leave C6 in there?
Oh, yes, C6 is fine.
Okay. Okay, so take private or private out of A, 1A, and then we will take B2 place, delete that in its entirety, and replace it with the private property public area definitions in the camping ordinance. Okay?
All right,
That's,
so
that's,
you wanna-
that's my suggestion.
Well, then you probably need to make a,
Sure, I'll make the
Second.
motion to accept it with those amendments described.
And I'll second that.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Okay, so now, action item B, discussion, consideration, possible action on ordinance 02-13-2025-1 camping regulations on public and private areas.
Can we read that ordinance? Can someone read, I don't have it.
Which one? The camping?
Yeah. I guess the one thing that does bother me on the camping thing is, and I don't think this would end up being a problem either, but it could. There's a lot of junior high kids, my kid being one of them, that camps out in people's backyards, you know, on Colorado Street, you know, on the weekend with a bunch of buddies and all that, you know what I mean? Like, we can't do away with that. I mean, that's not a.
I think we
No.
put a 72-hour, so you can camp up to 72 hours on private property, so 3 days.
Okay.
And if you want to camp more than that, you can, you just have to come up and get a permit.
Yep,
correct.
it's in D, under
Yeah.
section 3, camping on private property. It's on D. An individual that desires to camp on private property for a period longer than 72 hours must apply for a camping permit with the city secretary.
So, Chief, I mean, you
And
were very,
So the reason for the ordinance is right now, our city ordinance is the only thing we have in there for camping is camping at our public parks. So it doesn't cover, if I were to go and buy a city lot somewhere and let a whole bunch of folks make their tent cities, I guess you can call them out there, there's nothing we can do about it. Absolutely nothing. Because we have nothing in our city ordinances for camping on public or private property. We ran into an issue, I'm sure everybody's aware, out on Interstate 20 on the service road where we had a gentleman start up his little tent compound and trying to get TxDOT, somebody to say, I will sign as a caretaker of that property so we can criminally trespass him, took me 2 months. Literally 2 months of making phone calls. TxDOT would kick it back to DPS State Police. They would kick it back to TxDOT, and I was just being thrown in circles. Well, if we have a city ordinance that bans camping, we can kind of circumvent going around having to go through a situation like that again. And, you know, take it from myself, I'm a camper. I like going to recreational vehicles as well as tent camping. We hammock camp. We do all that stuff. My kids tent camp in the backyard of my house. We're not trying to take that away at all, by any means. We're just more or less saying that we don't want somebody to have the availability to live in a tent out on a lot somewhere in the city limits.
But you don't have to get a permit to
No.
camp in the backyard.
No, if
No.
you're, if kids are out in the backyard, that's normal stuff for East Texas.
Now, if you kick them out of the house and they're camping back there for 4 days,
Yeah,
there's a
that's-
problem.
4 days, then you gotta come talk to us. Yeah, get a permit.
So do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Action item C, discussion, consideration, possible action on resolution 02-13-2025, calling and ordering an election to be held on May 3rd, 2025, to elect, number one, mayor for a 1-year unexpired term and 3 city council members for 2 2-year terms. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Oh,
Laura did.
Charles?
Laura?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Action item D, discussion and possible actions on all matters incident and related to calling a bond election to be held by the city of Van, Texas, including the adoption of resolution 02-13-2025-1 pertaining thereto. Open for discussion. Mark?
Well, I've been doing a lot of thinking and sleeping and thinking on this one. I guess I have a lot of teetering going on here, but at the end of the day, after going to a county town hall meeting where they're doing a CO for the courthouse and a possible bond election for the jail, it really got me thinking about how necessary it is for the city to have water and the citizens to have water. It's like really the number one priority, then safety. So my thought process is it's not really up for negotiation in the sense that if it's voted down, what are we going to do for water? I mean, I know we'll have water immediately, but we're going to get to a point where we're going to need to start working on the next well. So isn't it not our responsibility to make that happen? Hence a CO. So that's just my thought.
So, Kevin, are you here? My question would be then, if it gets voted down, are we going to be okay for the 3 years? What's the answer?
Okay, we've met with a bond attorney multiple times. What you run into is that we will not be able to, let's say the big development comes out here and we need water, and this has been voted down. You can issue a CO to go find a piece of property and drill well number 5. You cannot for 3 years work on well number 3, period.
Okay.
Unless you pay cash, I mean, issue a CO.
I don't think we're going to pay cash.
Well, I know, but you see what I'm saying. And Jeff was in that meeting. If you want to ask him a lot of questions about it, he's going to be our guy in the front line, I believe. So I think he probably needs to answer some questions. You're welcome, Jeff. You speak way better than I do.
we've talked about this, before, and it's just kind of a matter of options. I know Kevin met with Mr. Dwyer, so he recently has talked about a lot of this information, and we used to have 4 wells. I know a lot of people say there was 5. There was very few years out of the last 30 years that all 5 wells were on at the same time, and the 5th well never was generating water, usable water. So we had 4 functioning wells. At this moment today, we have 2. So even if this new well produces more gallons per minute than the previous well number 4, we're still not back to that 100% level. And that level, it's not an arbitrary number. TCEQ says we have to have a certain gallons per minute for every connection to our system. You have to have a reasonable amount to add more connections, and then something people forget a little bit is the ISO rating requires you to have a amount of water available for firefighting purposes. I mean, water systems were initially developed to fight fires, not to drink. So you have to be able to produce, and our insurance ratings for the town, especially commercial, is based on pressure and volume to fight the formulas on buildings without sprinkler systems, and it's a big number. And we won't meet that number with 3. So we have to get back to 100% somehow or more. And I know there's a lot of talk about, we've been getting information together about the lake and things like that, and it's not even an option. But the concern that Mr. Hewell has is valid, and like we mentioned a couple months ago, there is legislation proposed to extend that 3 years to 5. And there's also legislation proposed to where you can only hold bond elections in November. And we can have a bond election in the spring cycle, and if it's voted down, that starts that 3-year clock. If we say, oh my goodness, everybody all of a sudden wants to try it again, we try it again in November, it fails, we've reset the 3-year clock. So there's that risk, I guess, as we're saying. There are other ways to finance it. There's revenue bonds and some other loans, but the simple fact is Van doesn't have the resource to make the payments on those loans. It's going to have to be a tax-secured loan, either a CO or a GO bond. It's going to be one of the 2. So again, we can operate with 3 wells. It can be done. We've done it with 2, but we would be on water restrictions, at least 2, level 2, 1. But I'm just going to kind of bring up the fact that that's with all of them running at, we're on level 1 restriction if all 3, our new one and the 2 we have, are all running at the same time. If you have to take one offline, we're going back to level 3 at least. If you have to take one offline in the summer, maybe worse. You'll remember we replaced a motor last December, last New Year's. The only reason that only took a week was because we had ordered that motor 2 months prior to that. It's a 2 or 3 month order to get a motor, and it's about $100,000. So, we still have a well out there with a little bit older motor on it. It also is 7 degrees off. I'm just saying we have to be able to do this routine maintenance to the wells, and that requires that you take them offline to do so. So if we have 3 wells and we take one offline, we're back to number 2 where we are right now. If for something happens at 1, and then y'all seen what happens when we drop down to 1. So like Mr. Hewell says, it's a necessity. I mean, it's not a matter of should we drill a 4th well. We honestly, at this point in our development, should be looking at the 5th one. And we're always going to have a level of debt, just like I do and everybody does. But we have to manage that level. We can't say, well, we're going to pay this off and we're not going to have any debt for X number of years. We have to plan these projects out. And the sooner we get this project done, the sooner it'll drop off the books and we can move on to the next project. And again, with the urgency of it is in 12 months, the cost to drill this well increased by nearly $500,000. The estimate, it went from 1.9 to 2.4 something. So, if we wait till next year, who's to say that it's not going to increase that? I don't see it going down. But to address your concerns, it is a valid concern. If it is rejected as proposed to re-drill well number 3, that doesn't mean we can't take out a CO for water improvements or things like that. But we can't go out and get a CO for well number 3. And we definitely need to be open and transparent. If I'm going to communicate this to the people, obviously there's something that I didn't realize that I can't encourage people to vote for it. If I'm speaking on behalf of the city, I can only give them the facts. I can't say, vote yes. I have to be real careful how I say that. But I do want to be able to give them honest answers on the consequences if asked. And I don't want to say, well, if you vote no and we're on water restrictions and we turn around a couple months later and we just do it anyway in our FY26 budget. So I said a lot of words without saying anything right there, but again, it is a valid point that Mr. Heatwell makes. It's kind of a gamble. We have, in 5 years, we took out 3 COs. If you look over the last 15 years, as what the legislature, what they've done with COs is they've slowly narrowed what you can use them for, how you get them, things like that. Water is still considered an emergency expense. I know this year they took out a lot of things. A lot of other municipal buildings and structures are not available for COs anymore. So, who's to say what'll happen this session, and the ability to put this before the people at a time when, last year's school taxes went down a little bit because of some legislative stuff. So, to put this out there for everybody at a time before they're hit with anything else would at least give our citizens the opportunity to decide, what they wanted to do. And the only thing I'll say, just kind of for the record, I know we still got a few citizens here, is I pay tax. It's going to hit me just like it's going to hit everybody else. So, I mean, I'm not cavalier with these words. I mean, whatever happens, be it a CO or an election, is going to affect me. But I also live here, and I need to be able to take a shower and wash my car and do all the things. So, it's just decisions I have to make. So.
Anybody else have any questions? Laura?
Nope, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
It
Samantha?
will not, I just say this, it will not be the first time the city of Van has done a bond election for a well. Number 1 and 2 were funded that way.
Can you provide historical outcomes?
They were approved.
They were
For well
approved?
number 1 and number 2. It's on my history of the city lake that I have. It's, yes, been a while. But I just want to say there is a precedence. It has happened before. Obviously, the costs were significantly different than they are today, but the initial 2 wells, when the surface water gave out, were funded with a voter-approved bond. And I hate that the urgency of this, when we brought it up in November, December, it's just that to have it on the May cycle, the decision has to be made by tomorrow.
Today, yeah, tomorrow.
So this meeting.
So do we, I guess in the end result, do we have a motion?
Well, I make a motion that we go ahead and have a bond election.
Second? Laura, Charles, Mark, somebody?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, action item E, discussion, consideration, and possible action on approving a credit card in the amount of $2,500 for Mark Campbell, city administrator.
Do you want to move,
Ernie?
do you want to skip that and do F? That way we can do it after the
Yes.
executive session?
Before we go further, due to my job, I want to go ahead and recuse myself from E and F.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And I
Lori
would,
stated she would like to recuse herself from E and F motion, so she's going to recuse from both of those.
and I'm going to make the motion that we table those 2 items till after executive session.
So E and F,
Yes.
okay? He's making a motion to that. Do we have a second to that, or do we?
I second that we go ahead and put that off
Table it?
until after, yes, table it, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now, the next thing would be, executive session. City Council will meet in a closed session under Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the city administrator or manager. So do I hear a motion that we convene?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
It is 9:02.
right. Thank you, Teresa.
You're fine.
Good night.
10:20. Okay, so we're reconvening back out of executive session. It is 10:23. So do I hear a motion to reconvene?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, okay, yes, thank you. All right, so now we're going back to items E and F, discussion and consideration of possible action on approving a credit card in the amount of $2,500 for Mark Canfield, city administrator, city manager. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
we
you
have-
already had.
Yes.
That's just a reminder that Councilman Duncan is recused.
oh, that's right, that's right.
Okay, so what's our motion?
I make a motion that we table that item until next month. Look at it more closely.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this, item F, discussion, consideration, and possible action on adding Mark Campbell, city manager, to the Texas Bank and Trust bank accounts as a signor. Do we have a motion?
Might as well table that as well.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to table.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, so then, I guess that is it. So I guess, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
A second? Somebody?
I'll second it.
Charles? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.